Good afternoon, everyone. We'll try to make you sit vertical. If not, we'll ensure that you are horizontal. So we'll start with this. I think this is the seventh CFO summit, and I think maybe Nitin has also been part of all the 7 summits. And this is the first time we are having a topic on sustainability, and also I think this is the first time we have a sustainability partner as well. So the topic is gaining importance. In the morning, somebody was talking of the BRSR report being mandated by SEBI in all the annual reports. So start off with that, and also in the morning, Mr. Kurian said that there are very few ladies sitting over here, and this is the only panel, as Hugo said, is where we have a lady member here. And as a part of the 17 sustainable goals, the gender equality is one. So fortunately, at least at this panel, we have a lady speaker here. And what we start off with is, this is green growth and sustainable development. So what is this topic all about? So, there are 17 sustainable goals which have been defined, and they have in 5 pillars of peace, prosperity, planet, people, and partnership. And we all know what is people. It's all eradicating hunger, gender equality, everything. All we, as a corporate, we talk of is something to do with the planet. So whenever somebody says sustainability, we all remember the energy conservation, the water conservation, and everything. So few things which the corporates do. There are a few things which over and above this is also being done. So I go to the panelists, I'll go to each one of them and ask what is that is sustainable development all about, what is that the organizations are doing, and maybe what is the plan going forward, because a sustainable development or a sustainable growth has also to be matched with a profitable growth, because the investors don't look at sustainable growth only, they also look at the profitable growth. But having said that, investors have also started seeing sustainability as one of the main points. Also, maybe the consumers have also started seeing sustainability as one of the points. So we'll go to the panelists one by one, and then we'll see as to how these are all interlinked and how the corporates are looking at it. Let me start with Karuna first. What is this green growth all about, Karuna?
Arun, green growth all about is we continue to grow. At the same time, the impact of environment or any other negative impact that will have in the economic is either considerably reduced or it's completely eliminated. So, there are a number of examples that happens, right? One, within the store, what are the things you can do? What are the things you can recycle at the same time? How we can achieve the growth. Similarly, like how can you have probably a gender equality, or even giving an opportunity to the transgenders. And so in nutshell, green growth is something where we continue to grow at the same time, with least impact on all the climate, the environment, and so on and so forth. That's I would say a green growth to start with.
Thanks. So we'll go to Nitin. See, there is always what we call is a profitable growth. And that is what, at the board, at the discussions, everything happens. So how do we manage a green growth when there's going to be expectation of a profitable growth and when the competition is so intense?
So let me try to understand your question. So what you're saying is we have finance on one side and we have sustainable practices on the other side. Your question is how we are kind of integrating.
How do we interlink both?
Okay,
yeah.
Good. So look, of course, ESG as a practice, as a name has been new to India. But I think as a business practices, I think we have been doing it, for quite some time right now. From a business processes, if I look at, since I belong to a real estate industry, let me start by construction. So, from K. Raheja Group perspective, we have been in business for more than, I would say, 50 plus years. And all our constructions, those are all green building certified with platinum, gold, or different classes. So one is definitely, while what we are doing as of now is creating a sustainable structure over there, even though we call it as a building, but from a green sustainable practice, I think that's the green building which we are constructing. So number one, all the best practices, so far as whatever construction practices are there, we are adopting it. Secondly, from a business standpoint, how can we reduce our carbon footprint? I think one part is definitely, I'm sure all businesses have been doing, looking at how can we have EVs in the system, how can we have energy efficient system, how can we reduce energy consumption in whatever businesses we are doing. So in whatever practices, green practices you follow, I think ultimately they are giving benefits to the bottom line as well. If I talk purely from a finance perspective. Let me take one example. So if I go and look at renewable, currently the landed renewable energy in quite some places in India, if you are using open access energy, the landed cost of electricity is almost 50%. So if you are using electricity from a renewable source, you are already reducing your energy cost. So that's a huge cost benefit which brings to your balance sheet. So that's one part, example which I can, and there are many, while we are talking, maybe I can just add. So I don't want to create a monologue here.
Sure. So let's move on to Jayashree. Jayashree, Nitin just touched upon, something on a renewable energy, and where later on you can reduce the cost, but that also requires a huge amount of investment. So with the investors looking at somewhere the short-term profitability in mind, how do you convince the management and the board that this investments need to be made?
Hi everyone. So balancing the upfront cost, like which Nitin talked about, along with your long-term strategic goal is challenging, but it is crucial also. So at like Runwal, we strive to achieve the final balance between that. So some of your short-term objectives, like which you've been referring, if they are aligned to your long-term objectives, it's easier to manage them. Like for example, let's say if you're buying equipments or chillers, and if you have to look at only buying the equipment, which is the most cheapest one, without looking at the operations and the maintenance cost of it or the resale value of it, then if your reduction of electricity consumption is your objective, then you will not be able to achieve it if it is long-term perspectives are not taken care into consideration. This is what we called as TCO, or the total cost of operations. So when we put TCO into perspective, into our short-term profitability and project our long-term vision into that, it's far more easier to convince investors. Another concept which we generally employ is like LCV. It's the long-term value of the consumers or the customers. So if the cost of acquisition of your customer over a longer period, if the short-term benefits are only taken into consideration, that would amount to be a very higher number. So if strategic alignment is there, then it is easier to convince investors. Another factor may be, let's say, your compliance or the regulatory measures. So if impending legislations are there, whereby you will need to migrate, then also it makes sense for you to do so without considering your short-term objectives. For example, let's say we are aware if there are emission norms which are coming up. So, and if you are upgrading, then you know that long-term these are the values which you will achieve. So putting all together your profitability and TCO into consideration along with your strategic objectives, I think it meets the long-term goals of your organization, and it's easier to strike a final balance between them.
Thanks, I think very well put. Beneath, Jayashree talked about the customer acquisition cost and everything. There is also, when I go to the customer side of things, how do you think you come from an apparel brand which has got an international presence, how do you think that customers look for sustainability as a choice?
Thanks, Arun. So I think the biggest, I'll say consumers today really care for sustainability. And the biggest proof is we are discussing sustainability in this forum. That that gives how much importance is given to sustainability now by the consumers. So I think over the last few years, a lot of change has been driven by the access to social and digital media, where the impact of climate change is felt by each and every consumer, and they know the impact on their lives. And they want to also do their bit to help the climate or the environment on an overall basis. There have been multiple research in India, in overseas also on the topic. And the number of consumers, the percentage of consumers might vary from 30-40% to 70% in some surveys. But everywhere the outcome is that the consumers wants to buy products which are sustainable, which are made in an environment-friendly way. And when it comes to sustainability, it's not only about how the product is made, it's also about the durability of the product. Customers are choosing products which can be used for a longer time compared to something which needs to be replaced regularly. Another example is the adoption of electronics vehicles or EV vehicles across the world. Now the trend is even catching up in India. So again, people are looking for options where they can do their bit to help the climate, and it's across retail industry also, apparel also, same thing.
I would just like to add on to what he's saying. I was reading something from IBM that about 70% of the purpose-driven customers which are there, they are even willing to pay a higher price of 35% on the products which they are buying. Even like some 37% people are there who are willing to switch their preferences also if they are moving towards sustainability.
So we see their brands also advertising that these are sustainable products so that there are customers who are ready to buy for it.
One more point, Arun. I think this trend is coming up in India, but it's already there in global. So a lot of people are now focusing on rental business. So rather than buying something, you take the product on rent and use it and return it back. Or a repair service is providing by the brand so that the life of the product is extended. So again, this all is linked to the environment. How can you use lesser number of products and use it for a longer time?
Yeah. Anish, see, there's always, we do a planning and budgeting, and where we incorporate more of the business side of things. So how do you plan to put the sustainability costs into the planning and budgeting process?
I think what I think is that it's a business philosophy that you are adopting, that if you are going to operate in a particular space where you, right from your process of, say I'm talking from an apparel industry perspective, so right from choosing the fabric which is sustainable to the manufacturing process which is again as environment friendly as possible, to the packaging material and the dispatch and all. So I think it's about a business philosophy that you are going to operate under. Also, I think there has been a shift in the consumer mindset also. So while I think a few years back we would look for a sustainability mark on some of the products, and then you would like to choose, and I think somewhere, at least in some parts of the world, it's become a kind of a must-have. Or it's kind of a given that, okay, if I'm buying a particular denim, it ought to be sustainable. And so I think it's an overall business philosophy that needs to be evolved and changed. And based on that, naturally the strategy will come, and naturally the budgeting will come. So you'll have what we do is, while there will not be a separate allocations per se for this, but I think it's something that has to be woven as a part of the business. How much is the customer going to be willing to pay extra for that? Again, it varies from markets to markets. But I think if we as a business decide to work under a certain philosophy, I think we'll configure our business to be able to take care of those kind of.
So one of the overarching principles is that there are customers who are ready to pay for a sustainable product, and I think that is only growing as a consumer base. So we'll get into the business side of things. Maybe we'll start with Nitin. So Nitin, you have been part of the apparel side of the business, you have been part of the mall side of the business, and now you are in the hotel side. So let me go to your current role. So in hotels, generally, we always know that there is always a placard in a room that keep your towel to reuse or whatever it is. Or there are also, you said, the installation of renewable energy sources, or we also see the motion sensors installed in the pathways and all. So what are those steps that maybe Chalet Hotels does in terms of sustainability?
So whatever you said, all.
I know all of these things, but I said
80% is
something
already
more.
covered. Okay, so I think I will talk about the trends which are coming in not only in Chalet but in the hotel industry as a whole. So one thing is, just for all the retail, ops here, hotel industry is basically divided into 2-3 major buckets. So one is either you are owning the real estate, or second is you are owning and managing it, and the third is the asset light model, which is either you are managing or leasing it. So I think in all the three gamuts now, the biggest play is digitization. I think hotel industry is a little late in terms of digitization. Retail has caught it much before because, with Amazons of the world, e-commerces of the world, I think the retail has been, I would say, 5 years ahead in terms of digitization. I think that's something which hotel industry is catching up right now. And all the green practices, whatever you have talked about. Plus, a lot of hotels are going towards EV side of the business as well. A lot of vehicle movement, whatever is happening, they are encouraging the EV side of it, EV chargers, etc., which I think you will find in every hotel. Third, even from a customer perspective, a lot has been now been devised or planned from an experience perspective. More open spaces. Now, when you go to a hotel, you will find more open spaces, more greener spaces. You will find people want to move out and relax also. So the third trend, which from a behavior perspective, you will see that people are going out and trying leisure destinations more often, rather than getting into more luxury. So that's the trend which is getting changed. So slowly you will find hotels investing more in open spaces, greener spaces. I think rest of all, I think most of the hotels are already doing, like water conservation, energy conservation, rainwater harvesting. Those are the common practices which I think across all, everybody is doing it.
So from hotels, we'll go to malls. So Jayashree, what are those steps that you guys take, say sewage water treatment plants, or anything to do with water management or electricity management?
So at Runwal, we are trying to incorporate 3 R's into Runwal, which is reduce, reuse, and recycle. So as part of that, one of the things which we have recently started is to reduce the consumption of paper to the farthest extent possible. So for all online, we have moved entire approval matrix of ours in the organizations to online. And the entire reporting mechanism which is there as part of operations and preventive maintenance, etc., that has also been moved online. The e-permits which needs to be issued to the retailer, a lot of interactions. So all of this is helping a lot to reduce the tons of paper which used to get consumed. So that is one initiative which we have recently started, and it seems to be working well. Our paper consumption requirements have come down by 90%, and which seems to be a great achievement inside the organization. The other thing, like he was mentioning, is we do rainwater harvesting. We put the entire rainwater harvesting into this thing, which it capitalizes our water tables, and that water is available for recycling. There is an STP. We have 1,000 kg STP. So the entire waste is segregated into recyclable and non-recyclable waste. The entire recyclable waste gets converted into compost. It is used for all our projects in the residential as an organic manure. We also distribute it to the customers, and the non-recyclable waste is given to the MCGM as to the vendors. Then we have 2 plastic packaging bottling machines. We recycle entire plastic water bottles into this thing, and they are given to the vendors which reuses them. So food court typically has a lot of these plastic waste which is used in this manner. Then there are air purifiers. We've completely removed tissue papers from the washroom. There are hand dryers which are being used. So all of these measures goes a long way into consumption of these things. as part of lighting and other things like everybody is doing, the entirely all of this has been converted into LED. So the lesser waste is generated and it is tried to be recycled and reused. There is an STP wherein the entire water is recycled into the washrooms. We are adding a softener so that our cooling tower can use that. So the efforts are to reduce the waste to the minimum and recycle it as far as possible.
I think, sustainability.
I'll just add to, one more point on Jayashree. I think there's one space where, while I have transitioned from mall to hotel, which I find hotels are doing really great, is hotels have got into bottling plants. And there is quite a bit of scope in the mall industry to start getting into that transition, from plastic to bottling. I think that there's quite a bit of improvement which we can do over there.
So I think sustainability has become a way of life from whatever Jayashree was saying, because a few years back we had to have a regulation to say that there should be no plastics, and there's a bit hue and cry, there were a lot of representations, but then now we have moved on. So now we don't see plastics at all, at least in the organized side of things, but as now it's like it has become more of an initiative rather than a legislation which is coming in to take it up forward. We'll go to the retail side. Start with you, Karuna. So you have about 250 stores, and I saw your investor presentation that you're planning to open 125 stores this year. So with so many stores coming up, and as well as the existing stores, so how are you managing the sustainability side in the retail side?
Hey, that's a fabulous question, Arun. A number of things we do. One, we used to open stores only in the metro cities in the past, not anymore. We've opened in tier 1, tier 2 towns also. So I think that helps a lot. The second most important thing what we do is, you can hear us, right? Sorry. The second most important thing is the gender diversity. In our service office, we have almost 40% employees are women. And at stores, we have almost 34 to 37% are women. Not only that, we are one of the first companies to have transgenders as employees, particularly in our beauty stores for makeup and other things, which in addition to that, we are the first company to have a day holiday for women during their menstruation. So these are the practices, what we did. And what we are also doing is, we are a multi-brand retail company. So our manufacturing is relatively less as compared to, so most of the things Nitin spoke about at a group level, what we do. Okay. In addition to that, we also recycle cloths. Whatever, there are bins in every stores where people want to come and donate the old clothes. Even at the office level, there are bins where you can come and drop the old clothes. We recycle it. And there are organizations which they use it quite effectively. In fact, last year we could churn out almost 650 kgs of such old cloths, and then we could save almost 2 metric tons in that. Many other things, like for example, incidental but quite effective. On the power electricity side, wherever solar energy is possible, we completely use solar energy. We are moving to a new warehouse in Bombay. Other than 2 or 3 months, I'm sure people in Bombay understand that, where there are rains. Other than those 3 months, it's going to be completely through solar energy. In addition to that, we have LED. We are one of those first companies to introduce LED in the stores almost 10 years back, when LED was quite new to the business. We have also implemented IoT in all the stores, where we could effectively control the temperature in all the stores between 23 and 24, so that the power consumption comes down. We are also working on with other service agencies wherever, we know we are in the departmental stores. Wherever in high streets where again solar energy is possible, we are doing it like that. And again, Nitin touched a lot of things, right? Across the group level, we don't have plastic bottles at all. It's only the glass bottles and glasses where we use it. We have completely dispensed away with the plastic bottles. In addition to that, even the soap what we use, all those things, we use multiple things. I can talk forever. What are the small things we do? But we do effectively to ensure that all the green initiatives are
I think we should also thank the RAI team, because here also I have not seen a single plastic bottle. It's all only those glass bottles which have been there here for the entire meeting. Binit, once I got to know that you will be one of the panelists, I went to your website, and the company's website says that we commit to be cautious of every decision that we make. So what does this mean, and what are those initiatives that you do?
Yeah. So I think the philosophy of our global...
Sorry, conscious. I said cautious.
Yes. So the philosophy of our global group is that we are conscious of every decision we make. And it's regarding how it impacts our people, how it impacts our consumers, how it impacts our suppliers, and how it impacts the overall community at large. Okay. So internally, we have divided this into 5 pillars. The first pillar is the raw materials, or which we call responsible fiber, which is the largest raw material used in our apparel products. Okay. So again, we strive to use more natural fibers like natural cottons in our products, so that which are produced responsibly, which use less water in their initial phases. So how do you use more responsible cotton? Secondly, we also use vegan leather. So it's instead of using leather which have, let's say, cruelty on animal, or which use animal substance, how do you move to a vegan leather? So all our products are made using vegan leather only. Okay. Nextly, we have also globally tied up with an agency. If you know polyester, again, there is polyester which is used in our apparels, but we make sure that the polyester we used is made using recycled materials and not from a virgin plastic. And even if you wash polyester clothes, there are microplastics which get released and go to the ocean, ultimately land up in the ocean. So again, at a global level, we have taken up an initiative where we're tied up with an agency who create a washing bag. Basically, if you wash a polyester cloth within the bag, it will not release the microplastics in the drainage system, and it will not end up in the ocean. So it's a global initiative which has started, which will come into India very soon, hopefully. So this is how we do a responsible fiber or responsible sourcing. The second side is environment. How do we take care of an environment, specifically on packaging materials? So again, we have moved all our packaging materials are either biodegradable, which is paper or similar kind of a thing. There are places, or there are reasons we have to use plastics, because in long transits across the world, you need to have plastics, but we make sure that all our plastics are made using 100% recycled materials, and it's not from virgin plastic again. Similarly, smaller items, but like swing tags or labels on the products, they are also made using recycled products 100%. Thirdly, the third pillar is ethical supply. So again, just we being ethical is not enough. So we have to make sure that all our suppliers who are producing the products on our behalf are also following the similar standards. So we have a detailed supplier code of conduct which every supplier needs to adhere to. There are regular audits, there are regular improvements which are made through those audits, etc. Fourth pillar is, again, community. So how do you impact the community? Again, at global level, at India level, we have different CSR initiatives at different levels. So some initiatives are helping women's side, because we are a largely or 100% women-focused brand. So most of our initiatives are linked to women. So in different countries, different organizations are there which we tie up with to provide community services. And lastly, people, like under the panelists also touched upon, that we strive to be diverse and inclusive in our organization across the world. Happy to say, maybe we in our head office and support office and the stores combined, our total headcount will be 60% plus is women staff, and 40%, less than 40% is male staff.
Anish, we all know that denim requires lots of water for manufacturing, and you are from a brand which is primarily denim. And what are those steps that you guys are taking to conserve the water?
So you're right, denim was equal to washes. So yeah, but a lot of technology improvements in the washing process to the extent and a lot of much more efficient machines, to the extent that most of our manufacturers are actually following a policy of zero liquid discharge. So the entire water is recycled, and used for even for as drinking water or for other purposes. So I think there have been significant efforts and investments behind it. So the entire water and all, I mean, water is only one of the aspects, but I mean, there has been a conscious effort at every stage of manufacture. As I said, I mean, right from the choice of the fabric to the process of manufacture, to the dispatch, to the packaging, to everything. I think it's an entire journey that that an organization takes if you want to be sustainable.
So for few people who are not joined in the morning, Dr. Kurian said that earlier the CFO was CFNO, and then later on he became CFKNOW. So, but then Ashwin Kaksiwala, who came later, said that at some point you should say NO, not say yes. So the question now to Jayashree is, there would have been some times where you would have faced some challenges on managing the sustainable objective with the strategic objectives, and there would have been some situations where maybe you would have to say yes or a no. So how did you handle that situation? Sorry, Dr. Green, I had to also use that no.
So like we were discussing, so sustainability comes with a cost. So there are, most of the time when we are introducing these objectives, there's a huge upfront cost which is there. And when we are putting these objectives into place and when we are taking decisions based on that, those are slightly difficult decisions to take, in the sense that there is no NOI which can be immediately demonstrated. These factors, the social and the environmental factors, do not have the matrix which can be demonstrated like you have most of the financial matrix. Therefore, to prove that sustainability is going to be beneficial in the long run, it takes a bit of time and convincing to the stakeholders also. There is, at times when we are doing these switchovers, there is a resistance to change also. People like to stick to their traditional practices, and this change management becomes a little trickier, and there's a lot of resistance you face also. So having said that, all these challenges are there, but in these challenges, the opportunities also abounds. Like Nitin was mentioning, putting up a solar is one such opportunities, where if you do not have cash flow inhibitions and you are willing to invest, there are huge advantages which we can get from your electricity cost becomes nearly half if you have put up a solar plant. Means I can share that currently also at our city, 80% of our common area consumptions comes from a solar plant. So maybe putting up one initial solar plant was easy, but now replicating that has become an opportunity, and we are going ahead and doing huge solar investments for rest of our projects to come. So there is a simple buyback which could be demonstrated. So there is a 4 to 5 year buyback which is there, but then rest of the time you can enjoy the benefits of the solar, and your electricity consumption cost is going to be virtually half for next 20 years. So such kind of opportunities which are taken, the sector is conducive, the government objectives are also in place, and such decisions helps to gather some courage for the rest of the other sustainability discussions also.
So there are certain benefits where there is a financial benefit, it's a no-brainer. Like, so we as CFOs always used to say that put your financials and say, okay, it makes money, okay, sustainability is an added thing, let's go ahead and do it. But Nitin, there would be some cases where you don't see a financial benefit, but there's a proposal which has come. How do you react to that?
So, look, there are many initiatives which we have taken purely from a brand perspective. So, and certain initiatives where the benefit is long-term. When I say long-term, say for example, net zero. Now we have taken an initiative that will be net zero by say 2040. Now this comes with a cost. When we talk about net zero, we have to look at carbon credit, we have to look at scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, etc. But from a long-term perspective, this will definitely gonna help us in 2-3 ways. One, definitely it's a huge brand value push. Second, from an investor perspective, somebody who's looking from outside in, it's again a big plus for us. And third, I would say, when we stand in forums like this, at least we can stand up and say that, the brands have done. So it's just not always the financial benefit which we should look at. I think the thought process should be look at more from a long-term sustainability perspective.
Vineet, in your experience, have you seen how consumer decisions, so we said that consumers as a choice, they do it, but how the brand loyalty works when it's a sustainable product?
I think, look, ultimately when consumer needs a sustainable product and you offer it's basically a trust you are developing with the consumer. And if the claims you make, if they are, let's say, clear, you are effectively communicating what is the sustainable portion or what are you doing for the environment, they are accurate and they can be verified by someone, then it brings an element of trust to the consumer. And once the trust is there, the consumer will come back again. I think the biggest bond we need to create is through trust with the consumer. I think that's, and how do you communicate the entire things you are doing, how do you involve consumers in your journey? So again, social media plays a big role where you can ask for feedback from the consumers on your product, what you are doing, what more you can do. You can also invite some selected consumers for, let's say, some events where they can also participate in some activities or CSR activities you are doing. So such things also play a big role in creating the trust with the consumer. But I think the last thing I'd like to say here is that, look, it's a journey, it's not an end. So you might not be there at any time. There is always a scope for improvement. So never make a false promise to the consumer that I am doing this and which on verification comes out to be false. If you are not there, you can always call out that our aim is to reach there and we are in the progress. So if the consumer believes you, if he or she sees the progress you are making, the trust will be there and they will come back to your brand and they will be loyal to your brand.
Anish, how do you measure some of the initiatives, and are there any KPIs that you have to track the initiatives?
I think, again, it will vary from the initiative to initiative naturally. But again, some of them are, as we had discussed, some of them are measurable, some of them are not really measurable, and some can be measured very easily financially, but some others cannot be. So again, I think it's a mix of all these things, and so naturally. So like, I mean, as Nitin mentioned, what it does to what rub off it has on your brand, it's very difficult to estimate. What additional business you got out of it, very difficult to estimate. Yes, some of the costs associated with that transition may be quantifiable. So I think it's an ongoing thing, and we'll keep on, I think, kind of bettering ourselves as we go ahead in the journey. Yeah.
I would like to add here, so basically 3 benchmarks, like every industry normally looks at. One is more internal KPIs. So you look at energy consumption year on year, quarter on quarter, etc. Then you look at an industry basis, which is more of a peer set benchmarking. You look at where you are versus how your peer set is performing. And then you go out and look at from a global index, which is like a DGCI, something like that. So these are basically the measurements just to see how you have progressed over years period, whatever you got.
Arun, I want to add a couple of things. In fact, what Nitin has said, yeah. In addition to that, there are a lot of external agencies available, right? I mean, they can give you what is the score of ESG last year and what is the ESG score this year. Instead of our own patting on our own back saying that this is what we have initiated, we engage and ask them. In fact, even at the group level, we've engaged. Like, what is the score last year and what is the score that we will achieve this year and what is the score for the next 2 years. I mean, all those things are very well defined. Okay, that's one. Second, what we also do is, what that has happened as late as yesterday, like whenever an employee has come back and said about any good green initiatives, how do we reward them? It's not only the monetary reward. How do you recognize that employee in a town hall meeting or something like that? That also helps a lot. So a lot of things what Nitin said is that at the group level, we have done a lot of things. In fact, one of our group company has gone, the ESG score is so good, they've gone with a bond, so a lot of things that has happened at the group level also.
So before I go to the panelists for concluding remarks, any questions to the panelists? So, see, sustainability is what we leave to the next generation. So, and this is a topic which is evolving over a period of time. So, let me go to the panelists, maybe start with Karuna to say that what do you think that how this is going to chart out over the next few years, and what do you think would be some of the initiatives in our industry?
Arun, I think the entire panel summarized it quite well. I mean, number of initiatives we spoke about. We also spoke about be it water recycling or be it electricity. I mean, number of things. This is evolving. This is not something I have 10 initiatives and then I'm going to improve on these 10 initiatives. Nothing like that. I mean, every year it's evolving and it's a way of life. I think Anish spoke very well about that, right? It's a way of life and again, and I'm just borrowing from what Nitin also said, we are also meeting, we are a listed company, we are also meeting investors. And one of the questions that's been constantly asked is, what are the green initiatives, what are the ESG initiatives we are taking? So it's, one, we have our own responsibility to do that. And plus, there are questions that have been asked from the investors, how are we progressing on that? So there is a, what do you call, I wouldn't call it a pressure, but it's a good thing that should happen. So it's a way of life. I mean,
it's being seen as the need, like how the Bangladesh manufacturers at some point of time,
absolutely,
the Western companies came and said that you have to have some of the basic needs.
Yeah. It's a way of, I mean, like we also discussed about the cost. I mean, again, there's nothing called cost. I mean, this is like, what are the long-term benefits we are going to get it? How the brand image will improve because of these things. Those are the ones we normally discuss internally. And then,
Nitin?
So, I think going forward, there are, I'll talk more from an Indian context. There is something which is called an intent, there's something which is called enforce, and third is a compliance. So, from a compliance perspective, you have to take initiatives. There's a CSR, enforceability, integrated reporting, etc. So that anyway you have to do. So you can't go around it. Second thing is enforce, where, while Karuna was talking about where investors are pushing you, which is again more of an enforce thing where you have to do, or you have to start taking initiatives, you have to do benchmarking, you have to look at external KPIs and try to map yourself against that. And the third is the intent part. So something which, while Karuna and we belong to the same group, and we keep talking about the group, rather than company, I think that's intent which comes out very strongly. And as in my initial comment, I did said that ESG as a word has been coined recently, but from a group perspective, we have been doing things from, maybe some 5 decades earlier. So going forward, I think Mr. Gadkari is coming up with revolutionary ideas. I think we can become followers there. He's talking about solar lamps all across the highways. He's bringing in many green initiatives wherever he is developing highways. I think that's something which we need to follow. Third is from a technology perspective, a lot of Indian tech, R&D and startups, they're doing a lot around the waste management, which we definitely need to look at. Some of the initiatives which, we have to adopt as a practice is from a climate perspective. I think that's a way of life. Yep.
Jayashree?
So going forward, two important factors which come to my mind is if there is a stakeholder alignment. So then the things becomes very easy. So if you are able to present well and integrate sustainability into it, and people also start thinking as their way of life, as their mission to achieve and contribute towards something, it becomes easier to lead those transactions. Therefore, what we have also started doing is allocate about 3 or 4% kind of things towards sustainability. There's an organization called MCF which says that that if you are incurring some cost as remedial measures to your property, and if it enhances the life and the value of the property, these should not be treated as cost and expenses. So once you are out of that mindset where you see that you can allocate the capital and it doesn't hit your short-term profitability, a lot of things are easier to achieve because it doesn't become a day-to-day affair and your P&L and balance sheet matters. This is something you have allocated the capital. There's a long-term vision to it. There is an approach to it, a 3 to a 5 year plan. And it's easier to implement those measures which can improve your sustainability in the long run. So that capital allocation and stakeholder alignment is one of the important things which we've started working on, and we see that the results seem to be coming through.
Yeah. So I think, like everyone said, it's an evolving topic and something new will keep coming up. But I'd like to conclude with saying something else. Is like, as of now, most of the ESG or sustainability decisions are driven by how it impacts your P&L, or like Nitin and others mentioned, that how it impacts your brand value in the long term. But when taking those decisions, we should also be mindful of the other side, that you should also evaluate, if you don't take this decision today, if you don't become sustainable today, how is it going to impact your brand, your company negatively in the long run? Because after 10 years, will you be still in the market if you don't become sustainable now? So it's not only about profitable now, it's about the long term. We have to think long term when we think sustainability.
I think all along our businesses have been focusing on economic or commercial responsibilities. I think it's not too far away to say that you have to be equally be socially responsible. I can't imagine a business which may be doing very well exceptionally financially, but does not follow the other aspects so well. I mean, these are not things that will really sustain that business. So I think to sustain your own business, you need sustainability.
I think the summary is, one, it's a way of life. We'll have to adopt to that. Second is, as Nitin rightly said, one is compliance, second is enforce, third is intent. So if intent is there, you will be one of those pioneers in going ahead and doing it. Otherwise, there'll be somewhere somebody will enforce. If you're not even doing that, then there's going to be a compliance which is anyway going to come eventually, and then you have to adopt to that. I think that's where the panelists have put together. And let me close out with a small joke which is going around on Twitter since yesterday, is that there's a big MNC which says that you have to use paper straws, but the CEO of the MNC will fly 1,200 kilometers in a private jet every week to go to the office. So we have to walk the talk, and we have to ensure that sustainability becomes a way of life and we follow it. Thank you so much.